Final Four again after you got used to being down a little closer last year?
Yeah, it wasn't the same. It definitely was a different feel. You know, you go to those Final Fours year after year, always hoping that you'd get to one, and then you get there, and you have to go back without your team, and it's not quite the same.
You talked with Troy, got any indication of where he's at in terms of his?
Yeah, I've talked with Troy a couple times. I just want Troy to do whatever's best for Troy. He and his family will make a decision. I'd love to work with him, for another year, but I want him to do whatever's best for he and his family. If coming back here is best for him, we'd love to work with him. If he feels like going to the NBA at this time is the best for his career, then we want him to do that. He's got wonderful parents and wonderful families, so I'm sure they'll make a great decision. As soon as he gets some feedback, we'll talk about that feedback. But he's a talent, and whatever he decides, I'm sure he'll throw himself into. And he's young, he's 18, and so he's got a big decision ahead of him. But again, wonderful young man, unbelievable family, and I'm sure they'll make a great decision. If they decide to come back, he would add a great deal to our ball club, obviously, because he is a talent. If he decides to go, I'm sure he'll work his tail off there and find a way to help a team.
What would you guys work on with him if he comes back next year?
Well, he does have to improve his shooting. That's something, and I think that would be, what most NBA teams would want him to do. And his ball skills are very good, and his instincts are very good. And it's just kind of matching that with this personnel that he's with. So I'd like to see his assist-to-turnover ratio get a little better, which it would, because he has a good feel. He's got a really good feel for the speed of the game now. So I really think those two things would make a big jump. He's only 18, so his body's going to continue to develop and get stronger, so there's a lot of upside whether he comes back here or makes the decision to move to the next level. He's going to make big strides.
You guys made a run last year with an experienced roster. Villanova was obviously pretty experienced this year. Just how hard is it to actually get an experienced roster? Because if you get really good players, they could potentially leave like Troy would this year.
Yeah, it's if you look back, I think at the last three Final Fours, you find very few teams, not only that won it, but in the Final Four that young. We were playing one freshman last year. I think Gonzaga was bringing Zach off the bench. North Carolina was bringing the big Bradley off the bench. I don't think South Carolina was playing any freshmen. And you look this year, and it wasn't. Spellman was on Villanova, but he was a redshirt freshman. So again, experience. We've talked about it before. Experience and talent, and those two. A balance of those two, always the best. I've always said talent was the most important thing, but experience was a close second. And having those two, our team last year was an example of that. We were really talented, and those guys have proven that by what they've done this year in the NBA. But we also, Jordan 3 years, and Dylan 3 years, Tyler 2 years, Dylan Ennis 6 years, Chris Boucher 2 years, but 2 years in junior college, Casey Benson, 3 years. So we had a really experienced team last year, and my job was a lot easier last year. This year it was a lot more. We could never, get those 2-point, 3-point wins that we had the year before. We all went on the wrong side of the column this year, and it's a difference between having a great year and a not so great year, and I'm hoping with more experience next year, how many guys come back, we will be more experienced, and I'm hoping that'll be a big difference for us.
Are you waiting on any other players of deciding staying or leaving?
You know, I'm having conversations. I was out all last week. It was our spring break, and you know, I had some recruiting and some personal things, so I was out all week. And so guys came back Sunday, and going to meet with a lot of them this week and just talk and get their thoughts, and they'll get mine, and you know, guys will be making decisions. But you know, we hope everybody stays. You know, but
look like the one and done might get rid of that pretty soon. How's that look?
oh, I don't know. I'm not going to make any predictions on that. You know, that's all the NBA. Everybody thinks it's the NCAA makes that decision. That's the NBA makes that decision, and so we have, you know, not much to say about it. You know, I think players, like any profession, should be able to do what they want to do. You know, I don't know. I think it's kind of unusual for people to judge guys on and moving into their pro careers. You know, we don't do that with musicians. We don't do that with businessmen. We don't do that with journalists. You guys, you take the plunge anytime you want if you're ready. And so, you know, I think guys, you know, they come from all different backgrounds. Their families are different. You know, our job in education is to do what's best for our students, for our student athletes. And so, you know, our program will survive. You know, it may not be exactly what it was if they came back. You know, I was sitting there watching that game going, man, if we'd had Dylan or Tyler or Jordan, just one of them back, you know, what a difference that would have made. But I see all three of them, you know, making their name and doing well, and that would have been awfully selfish on our part. You know, our job's to put them in a position to go out and make a living and have a great career when they leave here, and I think we did that with those guys, and you know, that's what our job is. And so, to answer your question, whatever the NBA decides, you know, we'll be right with them. I just, you know, what's best for the young men that we're fortunate enough to work with, you know, that's what.
You wouldn't be disappointed if they did the baseball, football thing with you.
You know, they won't do that. I don't think they will. I don't think they'll. Okay, you got to go out of high school, or you're going to have to stay in for 2 or 3 years. I just, you know, like I said, once they've had the freedom to go after 1 year, you know, I'd say if anything, you know, just go out of high school, go whenever you want.
With Troy, and I guess whoever else is thinking about going pro, is that something that you share with them, like the Tyler Dorsey, Jordan Bell kind of success at the NBA level, and how maybe staying here could still help them?
You know, everybody's different. You know, we just say, hey, if you decide to come back, here are the things we want to work on. You know, but you do what is best for you, and I continue to say that because, you know, I definitely want Troy to come back, you know, because he's great for our program, and I think he could make big steps. But, you know, he's got to be all in, you know, to come back. And if he goes to the NBA, he's got to be definitely all in there, because that's very, very competitive. So, again, that's personal choice, and whatever he decides, will be behind him 100%.
How do you manage recruiting right now? I mean, Troy goes, if somebody transfers you, I mean, right now you've got, one scholarship for next year. You could have 3, you know, I mean, you're trying to fill a void of, hey, we might have this many, we might not. Do you want people to make a decision quick? Do you go out and tell people, hey, do you tell recruits, hey, we got to wait and see how many we have open?
Well, I think we're going to have a pretty good feel. You know, we have a visit weekend this weekend and next weekend, and then the next 2 weekends, you know, we're out recruiting underclassmen. You know, we're dead right now, and then we're dead Monday through Thursday of next week because of signing date and that. So I don't, you know, the guys that we're still talking with that could come in and have a little influence, I don't think we'll be making a decision for a while. So I do think we have some time, and I think they want to see, in a lot of cases, the schools they're looking at are in the same predicament we're in. They're waiting to see who's coming, who's going, and how big a hole the team has to fill.
Do you feel like this team needs to add to get back to the tournament?
Well, experience, would be, I think Kenny will make a big jump. I think Paul will make a big jump. Abu's going to make a big jump. VJ, Peyton, so that's the biggest thing. Those guys coming back need to have a tremendous spring, and they need to set a great tone in the summer. So that will be the number one factor. Then the 4 young men that we have signed, got to get them healthy and get them here in late June when our summer school starts, and they've got to really join in, with the guys coming back. We need to be able to score the ball. We're losing 2 really good scorers, and Mikhail, who gave us physicality. Mikhail had a great year for us. He did a really good job, and you saw how important Elijah's scoring was to us, because when he scored well, we played pretty well, and when he didn't score so well, we didn't play so well. So you saw how important that scoring was. But I think VJ's going to take a big step and be ready to fill a lot of that, and the physicality that Mikhail gave us, we do have a hole to fill there.
You guys are showing up now on some of those early top 25 things. Are you comfortable with that, not knowing maybe how guys will respond to that the first time going through it?
I hope they put on there, this is a big guess, 'cause, if they're putting us in there, then they're guessing a lot more than I am. I like our talent. I like our guys. I'm sure a lot of that's based on whether Troy comes back. And again, look at the teams that have been successful, and they usually have those returners are setting the tone. So what kind of tone will our returners set, and how will the new guys, how quickly will they adjust? Those are 2 huge questions, for our team. And if the new guys adjust really good because our returners are setting such a good tone in this summer, then October 1 I'd probably feel a lot better. But the next 6 months, you guys forget about us, but it's just as important a time as when we start practice on October 1. We're going to give the guys the rest of this week. There's some new NCAA legislation that you got to give them, a lot of time off in the off season. So we won't work the guys out this week. We're going to give them some more time off. But when we start next week, the tone that they set, and getting started, will give me an idea, of how we're going to do. And then when the other guys get here in late June, I'll have a much better idea, how quickly they jump in, and, their ability as freshmen, to bring it every day. Because that's a big challenge. I talked to Dylan Brooks, and he was talking about how, tired he's getting. Even though he had a big night at Portland, just how tired he's getting. Well, they're adjusting to an 82-game schedule. Well, high school guys adjusting to July workouts, August workouts, September workouts, starting practice October 1 and having 6 weeks to really get ready for season. That adjustment, how quickly they make it, will give me an idea of how good we can be next year, because we're still going to be really young. Depending on how many guys come back, but we had the freshmen this year, looking at 4 freshmen next year. The bulk of our team is going to be sophomores and freshmen, so we're still going to be a really young team. Right now we got 1 senior with Paul, and his leadership is going to be critical. I mean, he had a good year for us this year. He has to have a great year for us next year. Peyton had a good year for us this year. He's got to have a great year next year. So I think those 2 guys, and you hate to put we put so much pressure on Peyton this year because he was our only returner. But those 2 guys, coming back as returning starters, will really have, and if Troy decides, that would really help, because then you got 3 guys to share the load. But right now it's going to fall on Paul and Peyton, and they're both very capable, But leadership's a full-time job. You can't bring it one day and then take the next day off. If you're going to be a leader that everybody respects, it's a full-time job. You got to bring it every day. And so if those two guys set the tone, Abu will follow, VJ will follow, Kenny, those guys will follow, but somebody's got to set the tone.
When you have a year like you did this year, where if you guys would have gotten out of the gates faster, it was kind of the non-conference portion of the schedule is what bit you guys come Selection Sunday. Is there anything you can do with the incoming freshmen that are coming in, or are you guys changing anything to help them kind of try to get their feet wet quicker than it happened this season?
That's a good question. Again, it falls on our returners. Last year, I didn't feel like we had a good enough tone set all summer. And a lot of that was because of Peyton was our only guy coming back who had played. Keith was back, Roman was back, Paul was coming off a red shirt, but they hadn't played. They didn't. This year, hopefully we'll have 5, 6, 7 guys coming back that have been part of it. And so when the new guys come in, they've got 6 or 7 guys they're watching. Okay, they're setting the tone. And they've all played. They've all been on the floor. So that would be the one thing that could speed up the process and get us ready a little bit quicker, because we can only be on the floor with them 2 hours a week. I mean, hard to get anything done in those 2 hours, that tone has to be set in the other 6 hours when they're working in the weight room and playing their pickup games together, and that's why you see some of the old programs that are much more ready to go at the start of the season. It wasn't because the coaches worked with them anymore in the summer. It's because they had 5, 6, 7, 8 guys back, whatever, that when they were working out, there was a game-like tone to it. There was a practice-like tone to it because those guys had been there and done that. And, we've had some injuries in previous years, Jordan's foot one year, Dylan's foot the next year, that prevented us from getting out of the gates really good. But, we still were ready to go because we had a lot of guys back.
When you have a more experienced team, you mentioned next year, would you look non-conference to add additional maybe power conference team or more RPI games?
Yeah, we are. The thing that really hurt us last year was losing to Connecticut in that first round, because we weren't able to play Michigan State and Arkansas, which would have changed our schedule a little bit. Although DePaul and Oklahoma, were more than we could handle. RPI-wise, that was kind of important. We are talking with, because of our incoming freshmen, there is a lot more interest from the TV people and neutral site games and that, and we're trying to shift through all that and see what works. We go to Madison Square Garden, that was set with Syracuse and Connecticut and Iowa, and we're talking to a lot of people, and we've got some things, but all the contracts aren't signed yet, so I'm not going to talk about them until those contracts have a way of getting lost, and so we'll just wait and see what comes back. But to answer your question, yeah, I think we will have a little bit more national schedule, just because we do have a few guys back, but probably just as important, people want to see our freshmen.
Because a 2K class, it could end up like peak 80 in terms of, UConn's got a new coach who knows where they're ranked. Iowa may not have a big, you could end up in something where you don't get maybe the RPI that you
never know.
Expected out of
no,
that.
I agree totally.
Seems like every other year you've played Portland. Next year's, is that the next year you do it?
We're talking with some neutral site games. The two that I've talked with the most, though, we're on the road for those to start, and they're coming back to Portland the following year. So, we played in Portland last year because of the PK 80. I don't know if we will this next year, but the following year we definitely would be.
And the point guard position, if Troy doesn't come back, because he kind of played that so wide, is Will Richardson? It's Will Richardson, right?
Yeah.
And how about Johnson? Is he a potential point guard too? Or?
Well, Will Johnson is someone who redshirted this year and can really handle it. But Will's played the point all year for Oak Hill and had a good year. Did a nice job for him, and he definitely good ball skills, left-handed, passes it pretty good. So has gotten a little bigger and stronger. And I like how he challenged himself. Two things, Miles Norris, left his high school situation to go to Brewster Academy to play against the best, and Will left his home in Georgia to go to Oak Hill, a very competitive prep school. So I like how both those guys challenged themselves. Homesickness shouldn't be as much of a problem for them since they've been away for a year. You always worry about that freshman coming in, but since they've both been away from home for a year, it shouldn't bother them too much at all.
With Will, I think he averaged like 30 a game as a junior. Do you feel like he can play on and off the ball for you at that guard spot?
Well, he can score. Yeah, he's got a knack for scoring. At his high school team, he scored a lot. And then this year at Oak Hill, he did both. He scored, but he also distributed the ball very well. He had some really good players around him. So, yeah, I think he's just a guard. I think and that's what, we don't call them point guards. You guys call them point guards and all that. We just call them guards. Guys that can get in ball screens. You want more than one guy in a ball screen. You want, guards, that can get in ball screens, that can handle the ball. I think you see it with all the teams that are successful. They got guards. They got guards who can get to the rim, who can create for their bigs. A great example of that is Villanova. They got a lot of guys who can handle the ball.
Pac-12 did not have a good season in the postseason. What do you kind of see as perhaps a reason for that, and as you just see it as being a cyclical thing, that it was a down year? Or I think maybe Pac-12 is maybe a step behind some of the other conferences.
Well, it was this year, but I think the biggest reason for that is we had 14 guys in the draft a year ago. We had the biggest, for the number of schools. I think the ACC had 14, but they've got more schools than we do, and so that was probably the biggest thing. Is just we had a lot of underclassmen go last year. This year, I saw where Aaron Holiday's leaving, and that's a big blow because DeAndre Ayton, he was a pretty good player. So we're going to have some of the same things again with some of the really good players leaving, but all major conferences face that. But we didn't have the year. It's wasn't good for us. We didn't have much success in the tournaments. I guess the whole Pac-12, our football teams didn't do too well in the bowl games either. So just one of those years. But I think it was just a down year. I think we'll bounce back. I know we will. And I think the other teams in the league will bounce back also.
How much does it help having 6 guys in the NBA and being able to talk about that in recruiting for you?
Well, that's most of the guys we recruit. That's where they want to be. So it doesn't hurt us at all to to have Dylan playing well and be in the top 5, top 10 rookies this year. That doesn't hurt us. Tyler's coming on strong. Jordan had a good year. So yeah, that stuff definitely helps us. Absolutely. So we hope to continue that because, like I said, we want guys to reach their goals. And when they come here, I think playing in the Final Four is a goal. But we know that going to the NBA is a goal for them also, and we want that for them.
Of the 24 players in the Donald All-American game, I counted only 3 or 4 west of the Mississippi. So to take off on Rick's play, is there a dearth of talent in the West, or is that just something that's not typical, or there's hardly any players in the West that were even on that team?
Well, there's when you go recruiting, there's a lot more that are East, for whatever reason. Population, lack thereof, out West.
California, that's pretty strange.
That's unusual. California usually, does a little better than that. But no, it is a year that, a lot of the players are back East, but to only have a few out West is a little unusual.
King and Bowl will be up in Portland, I assume, next week with that Hoop Summit. They're both part of it. Those two guys, it'll be your most high-profile guys coming in. See the expectations.
Yeah, Lou won't play. And Bowl played a little bit in the tournament. I think his Achilles is all right. I talked to him this weekend, and he thought he'd be okay. So, but no, those two guys, big part of what we want to do. Their size and they're athletic and they're very talented. And both seem to be really excited about being here and working with us. So, no, I really looking forward to, I like all the guys we've had. I enjoy my job. I'm lucky. So hopefully, we've got a group that really wants to work, but those 4 freshmen growing up quick will be a big key for us, no doubt.
Have you found having players in those marquee games have helped you recruiting other top-tier players?
Yeah, I mean, they see them, and so when we're talking to juniors now and younger players, they watch those games, and they see where a couple guys are going to Oregon. It definitely gets their attention, no doubt.
Going back to the
If you can give this past season a letter grade, what would you give it and why?
Oh, shoot. I'm disappointed, that we didn't have a better year. I thought that, we would come along quicker, and finish the year a little stronger than what we did. But it just shows you how close that line is. 2-point loss at USC and overtime game at UCLA. Those 2 road games right there would really hurt us. That was probably the weekend that you win those 2. You're looking at a different scenario going down the stretch. So we were close. We had our opportunities. We just weren't tough enough to finish them. We weren't. We didn't do a good enough job as a coaching staff to get them over the hump. So we're in it together. So whatever grade I give them, I guess I'm giving myself. And I haven't felt real good about my connection and what I got out of the team. That's. If you're not honest with yourself, it's pretty hard for your players to be honest with themselves, and critique themselves. So we were very average. We should have won more games. I think it's that simple. Now, I don't want to take away anything from the guys because, beating Arizona here and, they had some good wins. You look at the teams that were in the tournament, we beat Arizona State twice, we split with UCLA, and we split with Arizona. So we weren't that far off, but you got to take care of business every night, and we just didn't get that done.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks,
All right.
Coach.